Okay. Can you see the screen, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is, what will happen if DNA replication is not followed by? Okay. Not followed by cell division. This is the question.
Yes. In eukaryotic cells.
Yes, in eukaryotic cells. Okay, very well. So normally, to begin with Zad's question, karyokinesis is followed by cytokinesis, right? Karyokinesis, which is called karyons, means nucleus. So nuclear division is followed by cytokinesis, correct?
Yes.
Now, for example, so this you have studied in your class 11th. If you remember studying the cell chapter and the cell division chapter, everyone?
Yes.
You have studied. Can you remember something? Cell division. You studied cell division and cell.
Yes, sir. We studied.
So there you studied that in a cell, this karyokinesis basically, it's also in a cell division cycle. It's known as the M phase. Remember this? Studying this M phase,
Yes.
mitosis or meiosis, both. And this M phase contained various other substages known as prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Right?
Yes.
Let me just. So you have prophase, metaphase, anaphase. So just giving a instead of giving a one-word answer, I'm explaining this thing because it's from 11th class, so you should know this. Anaphase and telophase. And once this happens, it is followed by cytokinesis, right?
Yes.
So basically cell division. So in some cases or in some organisms, if this happens, so in a cell, if you have a nucleus that divides into two nucleus, right? So there will be two sets of DNA present, but this cytokinesis, like the division of the cell, this does not happen. So what can you think logically? What is happening? In a cell, we are dividing the nucleus, but not dividing the cell itself. What's happening?
So,
Right, simple, just logic. What do you think logically should happen? Yes, Zed.
so nucleus is dividing, cell is not dividing.
Yes.
So it's the first phase, we can say prophase.
So prophase is where nuclear membrane starts dissolving and all the chromosomes starts coming into the cytoplasm. I am asking that all this process happened. Because of this, in the same cell, you will have two nucleus now. Now, what should happen next? This should divide, and one cell should have one nucleus, and the other cell should have other nucleus, right?
Yes.
This should produce, but this is not happening. Then what will happen?
A type of blastomere will be formed, like study.
Nothing. In just one cell, you will have more than one nucleus. That's all. Right?
Yes.
So if you allow karyokinesis to happen, but do not allow cytokinesis to happen, then every cell will be multinucleated. Okay?
Yes.
Do you understand, everyone? Atif, Hanifa, Ifat, Iba. You have studied this, right? In class 11?
Yes.
If only karyokinesis happens, you can just write down this line. If only, you can write down that. Yes, Rifat remembers. If only karyokinesis happens, without cytokinesis, which means then the cell will not divide, right? Only nucleus will divide. Then it gives rise to a multinucleated cell. So you understood what will happen as a result?
So can we say like it results in like accumulation of DNA like inside these cells?
Of course, when it is multinucleated, then more nucleus is being produced, so more DNA is being produced. So karyokinesis means during karyokinesis you have DNA duplication. You know what we studied during replication of DNA. We just finished DNA replication, right?
Yes.
So DNA replication happens during the, I told you, the S phase. Remember S phase of the synthesis phase or S phase of interphase?
Yeah, there.
Do you remember the full cell cycle?
Yes,
Let's say if this is a cell cycle, from here to a very small part is the M phase. This is the division phase. But from here till here, a very big part is called interphase. And in the interphase, there are sub-stages. This diagram is there in your 11th NCERT.
Yes, sir.
There is G1.
The longest phase, which is having G1 and G2.
Interphase has G1, S phase, and G2 phase. This is called gap 1 or growth 1. Then S is synthesis phase. Excuse me. S is synthesis phase, and G2 is gap 2 or growth 2 phase. And then comes your M phase, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So during this S phase, the DNA replicates and becomes double. So that during the M phase, when it divides, it can equally be divided into two different daughter nuclei. But at the very end of M phase, there should be cytokinesis. So that two daughter nuclei gets divided into each cell also. One cell will have one nucleus. But you are saying if that does not happen, then it will end up with a multinucleated cell. Okay?
Yes.
If no cytokinesis and only karyokinesis. Okay. Good doubt. Anyone else? Any other question? Any other doubt? No?
No, sir.
Did you go back and do some previous year's questions?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So if you are doing previous year's question, if you find any question that is difficult or you cannot understand or you don't know how to solve it, please bring it to the class, okay? We'll do it in the class. Fine, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So let's start today with the new chapter. What we have to start today? Chapter
Evolution.
7. Is this chapter 7, right?
Yeah, evolution.
Evolution. I ask you to go back and read a little bit about the chapter. Did you go back and read about evolution? What is evolution, etc.? Yes, no. So if I ask you, what do you understand by this term, evolution? Let's go to the term. Let's start from the basics, okay? Like we do in every class. What do we mean by evolution or evolving?
It's like
Yes, Atif.
a very long and slow process in which which
Okay.
organisms like adapt to their environment so that they can work better in their conditions.
So can we say variation?
We can say variation, but in what context you are saying variation? Variation, what? Variation is difference, genetic variation, let's say. But how can you connect variation to evolution? In the last class, during Human Genome Project, I told you that, and also when we were studying the characteristic properties of a genetic material, there was one point which says it should be able to
And
allow small changes,
like
slow changes.
can happen. Yep.
Yes, known
Like
as.
organism can adapt the features of the environment.
What are these features that you're talking about? So this is one line that we study in every book. Like Atif said, it's a long and slow process of adapting. But what are we adapting to?
To the habitat they are living in. Is it cold or according to climate, environmental conditions?
So let's say talking about a desert. A camel lives in a desert. What does a camel has to adapt to? Camel is born with features that it can adapt to a desert.
Yes.
So
Uh,
what new features does it need? What is the slow change that is happening? A desert is a desert.
the camels are having humps. They can store water for like a long time as there is no water in the. Uh,
All camels had humps.
yeah.
Have you ever seen a camel which did not had a hump and then suddenly a camel developed a hump?
No.
Then what are we adapting to? See, these are the stories, right? How should we believe in it? Why should I believe whatever you are saying about evolution is true? Because there are a lot of myths. And in this class, I will tell you how to differentiate between the myths associated with evolutionary biology and the way we study it wrong versus what is actually. So if you're saying that camels have hump, so every camel has hump in the desert. If every camel already has a hump in a desert, how can you say that it is an adapted feature? It's the same thing like if you tell that humans, we have two hands, but we never had three hands or one hand. We always had two hands right from the beginning. So what is adapting? What are we adapting to? And what is this adaptation? What is this change you're talking about?
Uh,
Yes.
so camels are having high temperature inside their body. Uh, so
Yes.
can we say like that?
Is that new? Is that something new? High temperature is always there in the desert.
Maybe.
So earlier deserts were cold. It used to snow in the desert. Then it started becoming hot. So camels adapted to that. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No, right. Then no, there's no point to believe in evolution. Maybe it never happened. It's all just stories. If you're telling me stories, tell me some proofs. Science believes in stories with proofs or logic. If you do not have proof, a logic where we can begin from. Like Watson and Crick said that logically a DNA is double helix structure. So we believe that it must be replicating through a semi-conservative method. They did not know how to prove it at that time. Then came Michelson and Stahl with their beautiful experiment where they proved, yes, it is indeed a semi-conservative method of replication. So either logic or a proof, no stories. This is the issue. You understand, evolution is such a broad thing, a broad topic that we just remember things. Whatever books told us, whatever books and our teachers tell us, we just remember that. If they tell us that humans have evolved from monkeys, we will just remember that as a line. We never ask what? Wait a minute. How did humans evolve from monkeys? Did humans evolve from monkeys? Then why are all monkeys still monkeys? Are they going to be humans in 2050 or in 3050 or after 10,000 years? Will all monkeys become humans? If life came from a single cell, then why still we have single cells? Why we have bacteria? If multicellular organisms evolved from unicellular organisms, why we still have unicellular organisms? All unicellular organisms by now should have evolved into multicellular organisms. All monkeys by now should have evolved into humans. Why it never happens? Yes or no?
Yes.
Everyone? See, this is a very important concept. If you just do not understand it and you remember it, maybe you are remembering it wrong. Do you agree with me or not? Have we evolved from monkeys?
No, sir.
You don't believe we have evolved from monkeys?
So actually the theory is like we evolved from apes.
Okay, so you believe we evolved from apes. Then why are still apes
And
here?
that is a theory. That is a theory, not a proof. Like,
So what is the proof? Like, do you believe in that theory? Do you
no,
believe in evolution or no?
uh, no.
No. Yes, because we have studied the wrong evolution. What do you think, Atif? We have evolved from apes, like Zaid is saying. So we at one point of time were apes. Let's say 3 lakhs years ago, we were apes. We means our ancestors were apes. And then one day we decided, okay, enough of doing this being ape business. Let's become humans now. And we became humans out of magic. Is this what you think, Atif? What happened?
No, sir.
No. What do you believe? What do you think?
Sir, I don't think humans evolved from apes because they're like older species like Neanderthals and stuff like that. So maybe we were from that.
So where did human come from? Or where did apes come from?
So they say like Homo habilis are the first species like of humans. First humans.
Where is that? Where is that species now?
Uh, uh, I don't know. In the books they are written like that.
Again, so why do you believe books? If you do not know the concept, why do you believe there is a DNA? Are you now convinced after studying chapter 5 and 6 that indeed what they tell about DNA is correct? Or do you think that bola hoga? Then I don't still believe that there is how do you believe that there is a DNA? Maybe there is no DNA, it is all just cooked up from someone's mind. It's just half-baked theories that there is a DNA, a long polymer with 2-meter length in one cell. Maybe this is all stories, false stories. Yes or no? What do you think, Atif? Is there a DNA? Yes.
So it has been observed that there is DNA in this, like there are like real observations.
Exactly. Like one is real observation, like we can observe chromosomes, right? Heterochromatin, euchromatin regions. Even the better thing is we can actually treat diseases by the same concept. If the concept was all out of the blue, the medicines and the therapies, the genetic disorders would not have been we would not have been able to explain it, right? If genes were just an imaginary concept, then Mendel would not have been able to do all that experiment, because when he did not know that there is a DNA and a physical sequence or a gene, or there was no concept of DNA sequencing at that time. He in fact called it factors. Remember that?
Yes.
So he just hypothesized something which later got proven. With evolution, I have seen that school teachers, forget the students, even school teachers read, understand, and propagate evolution wrong, incorrect. Okay. So in evolutionary biology is a whole branch which is on proof. And when we come to the key points, so Atif, do you think that this statement, humans evolved from apes, is it correct or incorrect a statement?
I don't believe it's correct.
You don't believe it, but what do you think? It is a correct statement or an incorrect statement? Have you read this statement somewhere?
Yes, sir. Many times.
That humans have evolved from apes? Where have you read this statement, if I ask you? In a legit book, or is it just a word of mouth?
Mostly word of mouth. I also have like read it online sometimes.
Exactly. You will only hear this statement as word of mouth because there is no legit book, no line anywhere in any book that talks about evolution that says humans evolved from apes. And the whole of this misinformation comes from that one image, When there is an ape, then it try to stand forward, then it is straight, then it is a ape with a stool in the hand, then it is Homo sapiens, right? Have you seen this one image
Yes.
in internet? It's never understood what that image says. We just believe that, okay, it was an ape walking on four appendages, and it started walking bent. It stood one day and decided never to bend again, and with self-esteem, proud and ego, became a human and started making countries. No, that's not what evolution tells you. Or that's all word of mouth. That's how we perceive evolution incorrect. Okay, so you will never read this line anywhere in any legit book which says that humans evolved from apes or human evolved from monkeys. Okay, then what is the truth? Yes, let me hear from you first. What do you think is the relationship between, when I say that we are the closest to chimpanzees in evolution, what do I mean by that?
So
What
can
do
you
you think?
say, similarities in DNA?
So just by similarities in DNA, for that example, a human and a banana plant shares 50% of the DNA as same. 50% of the genes that you have, a banana plant also has. So did we evolve from a banana plant? Like somewhere down the line, we all were banana plants. Then we became monkeys, and then we became apes, and then we became humans. So if you just go by similarities of genes, then a bacteria also has the same gene for glycolysis that you have. So which means we were bacteria also at one point of time. I'm just creating a lot of confusion within you so that you know what is the confusion. It's very important to know the question before knowing the answer. So Atif, do you think that just by going through similarities of the genes, it's a good criteria?
No.
No, right. So it can be one of the criteria, but not the only criteria, because it does not solve the purpose properly, completely. We share a lot of genes with plants, specifically the basic genes. 50% of our genes or our DNA is same as of banana tree, as I told you. Make no sense, right?
Yes.
So how should we study it correctly? First of all, how should we define it correctly? So talking about evolution, let's define it. Write down. What is evolution? What does the word means to you? You have heard of this word multiple times, even out of biological context. So what is evolution?
So we can say steady development uh, of something.
Of what?
Anything.
See that's something. So the reason that you are not, has evolution chapter started in your school or no? Is it
No.
something you're studying for the first time with me?
Yes, first time.
First time, right? Okay. Atif, in your school, has it started?
No, sir. First time.
Okay, that's good then. Just a moment. What about Hanifa, Hiba, and Rifat? So what's going?
No, sir.
Yes, Hanifa. No. So what's going?
A vacation is going on right now, so
Evolution is going on in your school?
no, vacation.
Okay, vacations are going on. Okay, good. So I think in every all of your schools, whatever has been covered, we have covered all that, right?
Yes.
Anything that has been covered in your schools and we have not covered in the class before going to evolution?
So they were doing like organisms like 11th chapter, I think. 11th.
11th chapter, my god, what is 11th chapter? Can you tell me the name of the chapter? Is it some microbes in human welfare kind of something, or ecology or biotechnology something?
So organisms and populations.
Organisms in populations.
And populations maybe.
Is this the legit chapter?
No, sir. Maybe 13th chapter or 11th. I don't have confirmation.
Yeah, what is the name? There is microbes in human welfare. There is ecology, ecosystem. I think 13th chapter is yeah, organisms and populations, you are saying.
Yes.
Okay, that's about ecology. Okay, so we'll come to ecology later. Okay, ecology is simple once you understand evolution. Then ecology is a easy peasy cup of tea. Okay, we'll do it, but after
Yes.
evolution. Okay, very good. So you all are studying it for the first time, so it's good to discuss something. Okay, so first let's define evolution. Write down. Okay, before going to biological evolution, just talking about the word evolution. Have you heard of evolution anywhere else apart from your biology textbook or biological context? Any one of you was a fan of watching cartoons as a kid, watching Pokemon or X-Men movies? No?
Yes, sir.
So you must have heard of the word evolution there,
Yes.
evolved mutants. Or have you heard of this term called Big Bang?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What was Big Bang?
It is a theory that says like
Mhm.
our solar, I guess our solar system was like
Not solar system, it's theory that
carries.
tries to explain the origin and evolution of universe.
Yes.
Evolution is basically any process by which whatever is existing today, you can explain how it came to existence. How is it connected? So write down, biological evolution is the process. Biological evolution, origin basis. What do you mean by origin
So
basis?
on the basis of origin, like from it is coming, like
Yes, where it is coming and how. I'll give you an example. Let's first define this first. Okay. Biological evolution is defined as the process by which different kinds of living organisms have developed from pre-existing earlier forms. From pre-existing earlier forms during the history of Earth. Okay. During the history of Earth. So before coming to the broader question, or sorry, the specific question of humans that we started with, because human evolution is one thing that we have to cover in this chapter, towards the end of the chapter, which is origin and evolution of human. It says broadly that it is a process by which different kinds of living organisms have developed from pre-existing earlier forms during the history of Earth. Next point you can just add to it. It is a slow and gradual process. It is a slow and gradual process. It does not happen, and so evolution is happening all the time, but it's so slow that you will not be able to say with your eyes that yes, see, this evolution has happened now. It is a continuous process. Am I clear? Zed refer
Yes.
to info. Yeah. Now, do you understand this definition? Process by which different kind of living organisms have developed from pre-existing earlier forms. Focus on this line, pre-existing earlier forms, right? Which means that there was something existing earlier from which something else came into existence. For example, an update. When you use mobile phones, right?
Yes.
So you get on a regular basis, after some time, you get an update for your applications and for your softwares and for the operating system of the mobile, right?
Yeah.
Android 8, 9, Android 10, like this. So what is it? It is just from a pre-existing thing, something new and better is coming up, right?
Yes.
And for anything to change or evolve, let's come to the basic question. This is what you were telling me, and I started with the example of Zed started with the example of camels. If I go to the evolution of camels, then we have to understand the habitat of camels, which is deserts now, right? Now to change, for example, today every organism is living in its habitat, and when you look at them, they look very like so fit to their environment. A camel cannot survive anywhere else that good than a desert, right? It is adapted. It has everything, all the features to survive in a desert, right?
Yes.
On the other hand, a penguin has all the features to survive in a cold environment. A polar bear. Can a polar bear survive in a moderate or a hot temperature?
No, sir.
No. It can only survive in very cold temperatures where there is ice, glaciers, temperature is always in the minus. It can survive very well there. If I ask you, can an elephant survive in a glacier? Yes.
No, sir, I don't think so.
Yes, no, because to survive in a glacier, you need to protect yourself from the cold, the immense cold. Elephant does not have those features that a polar bear has or a penguin has, right?
Yes.
But this just tells you about the present scenario. Evolution talks about how this scenario, how you reached the present scenario. And this line that it developed, living organisms have developed from pre-existing earlier forms, you can just keep saying that this came from this came from this came from this. Before going to what came from what, there must be something that came in the beginning, right?
Yes.
Somewhere life must have started from. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
What is the fundamental unit of life, if I ask you that?
Fundamental unit of life, a cell.
Cell, right? And what is the closest thing? What do you think is the first kind of life look like? What is the closest thing which can be like the first kind of life? A single cell is capable of independent existence. Yes or no, Atif? Zed? Yes, Zed.
Yes. Yes.
So nothing smaller than a single cell can exist independently, right? So here we are talking about how was the first cell formed then. Simple. So evolutionary biology, or this process of evolution, has many theories that have been tested throughout by scientists trying to find the proof that if we believe in this, do we have logical proof that this can be believed in? Very earlier, when science started with philosophy, all the scientists, all the beginners were not actually scientists. We use the word for people who are in science these days specifically. But the term scientist is also getting it's a very broad term. You can be a social scientist, not only, it's not important that you do a physics, biology, or chemistry to be a scientist. You can do mathematics. You can also be a social scientist. You understand this term, social scientist?
Yes, sir.
That talks about like the society, the development of the society, and things related to human behavior and things like that. Okay. Science started with philosophers. Philosophers are basically those who seek knowledge and think logically. So philosophy, one of the early philosophers thought there was a theory called theory of spontaneous generation. I think it's not there in your NCERT, or I don't know. So if you ask where did life came from to earlier philosophers, one very basic obvious thing to give an answer was, God created life. That was one theological answer. Theology is the study of faith and religion, right? So those were also philosophers who used to believe that God created life. Okay, fair enough. But how? If God created life, that creation also must be having some mechanism, or is it just by magic that it was nothing one day and everything appeared the way it looks like one day? So many philosophers said, yes, there was nothing in existence, then zoop, zap, zip, and everything what we see today came into being. So before that and after that, when many philosophers started thinking it, taking the context of a divine power out of the discussion, they again came to to this conclusion that there must be something from where life came from. So what is that thing? One is, you must have heard that all the life on Earth, there's this one standing theory that life came from outer space. Yes, on Earth, life came exactly the way water came, or anything, minerals came from outer space through meteorites. Okay, but where did life came from in outer space? Again, the question is, where did life originated from? Now you can just keep transferring it from one place to another, that is fine. If I go and start contaminate, that why it is not allowed to contaminate outer space? There is a rule, strict rule against contaminating outer space. So you cannot just throw anything in outer space, or anything on moon or Mars, or dump anything there, because that will also include our own flora and fauna, right? We might contaminate to these places with life or living systems, which might not survive, but again, we are contaminating it. And then we will never be able to understand how did life originate, the way it originated on Earth. So that's why we do not contaminate space with life present on Earth. Now, one theory was, yes, it came from outer space. Another theory said, like some Greek philosophers used to think, that life came in the form of spores. Similarly, like many spores, and spores is a very, very logical theory to believe in, right? Bacteria actually reproduces through spores. Many slime molds and fungi reproduce through spores, right? So if a spore can reach a habitat which is having all the required conditions favorable and suitable to grow, life will start growing. But again, where did that spore came from, and how did it had the capability to harness life or make a single cell organism? So going back, when you keep tracing it back and back, if you see a single cell, break it down. What is a single cell basically? If I take a lot of bacteria, put them in a mixer grinder and turn it on, what I will be left with?
A mixture of
Of
many
what? Of
many components.
what are those components? That is what I'm asking. Try to be specific now. Is that Atif? What is a dead bacteria basically? That is what I'm asking.
Sorry, sir.
What is a dead bacteria? If I take 10,000 bacteria, put all of them in a mixer grinder, turn on the mixer grinder, I squish all of them, what I will be left with? Is life still there?
I think so, sir.
So a dead bacteria is also living, you mean to say?
No, so like bacteria is very small. If you put them in a grinder, nothing you really have.
Imagine somehow I can lyse the bacteria. I can kill all the, I can burst all the bacteria, everything, the juice inside them, all the cytoplasm came out and I collected it. So now is it living or non-living?
Not living.
We cannot say it non-living. So there are three terms. Non-living was not a good term to define something which is dead. So they are dead. Those were living substances which are no longer living, but they are not non-living substances now. You understand? Non-living is like a rock. Rock was never living, right? Piece of rock is a non-living substance, right? But a dead organism, it's not non-living. You understand the difference? Can I call it non-living?
No, sir.
This concept is not used here. A dead organism is not called non-living. It is just dead. It is not living anymore, but it still has all the components that made it living. So then philosophers started discussing, and it is all happening in like decades and years. It is not happening in one day like we will do in today's class. So we are just fast forwarding it to understand what basically is the summary of this field. So then they started asking, what makes a cell living? So if we go inside the cell, what is a cell made up of? Tell me. Cell is known as the fundamental unit of life. And it is the smallest unit which is capable of independent existence, right? If we go inside the cell, what do we find? Tell me. Yes, quickly.
Organelles.
Sorry, Atif.
Cell organelles.
Cell organelles. What are these cell organelles? If we go, if I break cell organelles also, what I will find? Remember class 11th,
Like,
a chapter called, yes, Atif, you're saying something?
so did you ask like what cell organelles will find?
I'm asking, what is the building block of a cell? At the very lowest level, what is a cell made up of? If you say organelles, I
Chemical
will say
compound?
breakdown. Yes, right. You're going good. What are these chemical components? What are they called?
Biomolecules?
Yes. And what are biomolecules? Proteins. Right? Not proteins. Let's go even basic. Amino acids. Right? Sugars. Right? Lipids. Yes or no?
Yes.
Nucleic acids. So taken alone, these things are non-living, right? They are just chemicals, molecules. But somehow, when they come together, they give a living property to a cell. Yes or no? If I ask at a very philosophical level, what happens when a human dies? It is still the same body, right?
Yes, sir.
But what is not present now? What was making the human body live, alive, doing everything? And then when it dies, you look at the same body. It has all the organs, all the cells. Everything is there, but the human is no longer alive. So what's happening? Human is a very complex
Like all
model
the
system.
organs stop working.
So is it like when human dies, all the organs also die instantly? Do you really believe that all the organs stop working? If that is the case, how can we donate organs? In fact, when we die, all our organs are not dead. The brain is not dead the moment we die. Even the heart tissues are very well alive. You can take that heart from a dead person, transplant it in some other person, and the same heart which you thought is dead will start working again. So do you really think that heart died? It's the human that died, not the heart or the eyes. All these concepts of organ donations work because organs are still useful, right? They're like spare parts, they can be used, which means they are very well alive, kind of. But this concept of life and death is very difficult to discuss and complicated to discuss in a human. So let's go to a bacteria, one cell. So fundamental chapter. So your earlier classes, you have studied one chapter called life processes. Remember?
Yes.
Tell me some basic life processes. I'm testing your fundamentals so that you understand evolution well. And after you go out from my classes, you can help your peers and others. You can discuss evolution in the light of truth and not some sentences which you remembered from NCERT or any other book, like humans evolved from apes. So what are life processes, Atif?
Certain processes in the body that are required for the continuation of life.
Very vague. No specificity in this sentence. The word certain itself is very, very uncertain. Certain people are criminals. No. Whom should I arrest and punish? Certain people, any certain people I find on the road. You have to say X, Y, Z is a criminal, right? So in science, the use of certain, we should only use it in a limited connotation. When we are coming to question is how will you distinguish between a dead bacteria and a living bacteria? Both are intact cells. There is one cell which is living and one cell which is dead. Two bacteria. This is living, this is dead. How can you figure out? How can I say which one is living, which one is dead? Yes, Atif. First thing is respond to stimulus. Yes. If any system is living, it will respond to an environmental factor, environmental change. Second thing is metabolism. It will require energy to stay alive. So it will constantly keep looking for food sources. Once it gets the food sources, it will metabolize it. For example, a bacteria takes glucose and then breaks it down in the same way a human does using glycolysis. You know what is glycolysis? Class 11. Human physiology,
Yes,
chapter
sir.
respiration. From bacteria to humans, glycolysis is common, right? So they do glycolysis. Yes. So metabolism, stimulus, response to stimulus. Third is respiration, cellular respiration, right? Which is basically a part of breaking down glucose. Anything else?
Growth.
Growth is not a defining feature of life. You remember that? Even non-living things grow. For example, a mountain or a sand dune. Or if you go to caves having calcium carbonate structures, from the walls of the cave, there is something like this that comes down, and over time it will keep growing. You know that? So if
Sir, I think
anything
it's
is,
called a stalactite or something.
yeah. So anything that grows may or may not be living. But anything that metabolizes is 100% living. A non-living system cannot metabolize. Yes? A non-living system cannot respond to stimulus. Now you can come up with, then sir, what is artificial intelligence? How can robots respond to stimulus? That's an entirely different debate. We will have some other day, but let's focus on life for now. So you can easily distinguish between a dead bacteria and a living bacteria on the basis of certain life processes, right? Which they do. And all these processes are a combination, or you can say coherent working together of these biomolecules. Okay. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So let's start with the first thing that was said in evolution. So there was a theory known as, write down, the theory of spontaneous generation. This theory was discarded. Theory of what is the meaning of spontaneous? Theory
Something
of
that happens unexpectedly.
something that happens out of, like, on its own, right? Yes, unexpectedly. You are not expecting it to happen. It just happened out of on its own from somewhere, right? Nephi is perfectly correct about this. Now they thought that the same thing. If you keep a bread outside, you will see that out of nowhere, fungi, bread mold, start developing on it, right? But now we know the reason, that it is not out of somewhere. There are spores already present in the atmosphere, right? Which deposits there and
Yes.
find it the right environment, and then these spores grow into fungi. But earlier, these philosophers, these thinkers thought that life just can come out of nowhere. They can just spontaneously, through some divine power, can just generate. And this we will never be able to understand, because it is, again, done through something which we do not understand. So this was called the theory of spontaneous generation. Okay, so you can write down the theory of spontaneous generation said that life came out of, so what they saw around them, they just thought that on the basis of observation, they made these theories. But these are very, very important steps in the process of understanding evolution, because if you do not make a step, regardless of the fact that it is a wrong step, you will never reach to the right thing. Okay, so this theory, the theory of spontaneous generation, said that life came out of dead, decaying, and rotting matter. And you can see it around you. What did they observe? They observed that if you keep any organism which dies, any, let's say a mouse died and was left there, after some time you will see that maggot starts coming out of that dead and rotting body, right? Larvae starts crawling out of it. Yes, no? Because it's rotting in biology. So by looking at it, you can say that these larvae started developing from this rotting mouse only. Yes or no?
Yes.
One will just see, and whatever one will see, will believe in. So this said that life comes out of dead, decaying, and rotting matter. Okay. And then there was this one person called Pasteur, Louis Pasteur. Pasteurization is the technique named after him. No? Have you heard of pasteurization? Pasteurization. People, pasteurized milk. Never heard of this term, pasteurization? If you've not heard of, say, no, we have never heard, and I'll explain it to you. If you've heard of it, say, there's no problem.
So it was like an experiment, we can say.
Not experiment. Do you drink milk, Zed?
Yeah. Yes.
What kind of milk comes to your house? Is it directly from the dairy?
Mhm.
Raw, fresh milk from the dairy? Or is it packed?
Packed one.
Packed milk, right? So you know that before packing the milk is boiled, not boiled, but heated to
Heated.
around 65 to 70 degrees, then cool down,
Yes.
then again heated, then again cool down and packed.
Yes.
You know that, right? Why are we heating and cooling milk down twice?
So there are certain bacteria which die on heating.
So do you understand that, right?
Yeah.
It's very important to sterilize or pasteurize the milk. Otherwise, if you pack it, it will start degrading right there.
Yes.
Shelf life will be very less. Okay, so milk is pasteurized before packing and being sold to get rid of harmful bacteria. So Louis Pasteur for the first time proved that don't think that life comes out of nowhere or from these dead, rotting, decaying matter. There is always a reason from that life is appearing in a flask. So what he did, he took two flasks. Very simple. He took two flasks and he he sterilized a flask. What do you mean by sterilization? You just heat the flask, heat the glass material to a temperature where no bacteria which is already stuck to the inner surface is there. Okay. Then he killed dead yeast. Yeast is a, yeast. Yeast is called baker's yeast also.
Yes.
The powder that you use for baking, basically. It is a yeast. It is an organism. So he placed dead yeast in two flasks. One flask was sterilized before beginning, and one flask was open to air. So the one which was sterilized and closed at the top, now there's nothing that could enter it from the top. Yes.
Yes.
And the one which is exposed to air and not sterilized, things like bacterial spores or bacteria themselves can enter from the atmosphere, right, and start developing on a dead and decaying matter. Yes or no?
Yes.
So he proved that in this one flask which I just sterilized, I didn't do anything much. I just sterilized the flask, close the mouth of the flask, and even if you keep it for 100 years, there is not going to be any life generated in it. The yeast will not degrade or it will not decay or rot, and no new bacteria or no new organism will come out of it. This proves that organisms don't just come out spontaneously from something which is rotting, dead, and decaying. Yes or no? So for
Yes.
once and all, this theory of spontaneous generation was dismissed. But however, this experiment did not answer the question that where did life came from. It just said that it is not coming from this way, what you are thinking it is coming. It is not coming spontaneously. But still where it is coming from is not clear from this experiment. So write down. Louis Pasteur demonstrated experimentally. Louis Pasteur. So this theory was busted, or you can say dismissed by Louis Pasteur. So Louis Pasteur demonstrated experimentally that life can only originate from pre-existing life. That life can only originate from pre-existing life and did not come from spontaneous generation. And did not come from spontaneous generation. Okay.
Yes.
So the spontaneous generation thing was busted. Life is not spontaneously generated. Then they started discussing, okay, then where does it come from? And there were 3 scientists who came with a very bold proposal. They were, sorry, 2 Russian scientists called Operin and Haldane. They said that life evolved from non-living substances. Living system evolved from a non-living substance or non-living system. Like, it did not make sense, right? People started saying, what rubbish. You mean that one day this mountain will just, stand up and start walking? Life will come out of like non-living substances? But they said, no, it's not like that. You are understanding it incorrect. The correct proposition is that these biomolecules, they are nothing but organic, non-living molecules, right?
Yes.
What is a DNA out of a nucleus? Nothing but a nucleic acid, right? Containing phosphorus, sugar, and nitrogenous bases. And they are all chemicals, right? Nothing else. What is a hormone? What is a protein? They are all organic, non-living molecules. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But it is just said like that. How do you prove it? The question is proving. Science demands proof. If you say that life can evolve or has evolved in the past from non-living systems, it still must be happening. Science must be happening right now also, right? Like I asked the question, if humans evolved from apes, why aren't apes now evolving into humans? Why don't we see, like, have you ever seen any of your father, grandfather saying that there was an ape in the village and after say 70 years or after 6 generations, that ape gave rise to a baby, a human? No, right? Apes always stay apes. Humans always stay humans. So if you are saying that life evolved from non-living systems, it can still happen, right? And it must still be happening around us. How do you prove it? Yes or no, Atif? Make sense or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you can prove that organic molecules can be made from non-living inorganic substances, then you can say that yes, what Operin and Haldane said, okay, is right. So Operin was a Russian scientist who was working on this theory, and Haldane was, I think, British. Okay, he was from England. It's British, and they both together, write down, proposed. Operin and Haldane proposed that the first form of life, the simplest life, have emerged from pre-existing. So nothing is coming spontaneously. Pre-existing non-living molecules. In this case, organic molecules. You know the difference between organic and inorganic? You are studying 2 types of chemistry, 3 actually: organic, inorganic, and physical. Yes or no?
Yes.
So what is organic chemistry? What is organic chemistry? You cannot define organic chemistry and are studying it. What do you think is organic chemistry, Hanifa? Yes, Hanifa. What is the meaning of organic, inorganic? This is a very common word
Organic
nowadays.
is like the study of composition, mostly about carbon compounds and
Or
how chemicals react.
yeah, and what is inorganic then?
Inorganic is mostly
Atif, we are discussing organic versus inorganic. What is organic chemistry and what is inorganic chemistry? Atif, any idea what is organic?
So organic means like naturally occurring.
Inorganic? So all of inorganic chemistry is in man-made. You are studying chemistry or not?
Yes, I'm studying.
Yeah. So you know that in chemistry we say that this is the inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and then physical chemistry. Do you understand on what logic is that division made? Or someone just woke up one day and decided to segregate all the 25 chapters into 3 different categories, and he did it. All right, there is a basis. Organic chemistry or organic molecules are those molecules that are related to living systems or the functioning of living systems. Okay. So Hanifa, you used the word carbon-based. Carbon-based substances can both be organic and inorganic. It's true that all organic molecules have carbon. At least organic molecules contains these 4 elements mostly: hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, right?
Yes.
But
yes, sir.
so can inorganic molecules also have. For example, do you think diamond or graphite, what is it? It is pure carbon only, right?
Yes.
But diamond is not organic compound, it is inorganic compound. Yes.
Yes.
So they propose that the first form of life has emerged from pre-existing non-living organic molecules. Now, how to prove it? And what are these organic molecules? These are the elements. Tell me about organic molecules. Write down. For example, organic molecules like protein. Protein is an organic molecule, right? Nucleic acid. These are organic molecules. Yes or no? Can you find protein outside a living system? Have you ever heard that this rock is full of proteins? Can a rock
No,
be
sir.
full of proteins? No. A rock can be full of minerals, right? Iron, calcium. But protein is something which is organic. Nucleic acid is something which is organic. Okay. And write down. In other words, what they said, in other words, they proposed that formation of life happened through chemical evolution. Through chemical evolution. So chemical evolution means, so they said that on Earth, everything was non-living in the beginning. When it was formed and it settled, there was no life. There was nothing like a life. Everything was inorganic, Nothing was organic, so everything was inorganic and non-living. Then chemicals reacted among themselves and gave rise to organic molecules. Then these organic molecules started aligning, or what you can say, started coming together to form systems which could define life. Okay, very easy to say, but very difficult to prove now. These are all words without proof. So write down chemical evolution. You can define chemical evolution is formation of organic molecules of different organic molecules from inorganic constituents. This is called chemical evolution. This is not biological evolution. So this theory says that for biological evolution to happen, first chemical evolution happened on the planet. This is known as, and this was given as, theory of abiogenesis. Let's biogenesis. Now let's come to the word. Biogenesis is biological synthesis. Bio means life, genesis means synthesis. Yes or no, everyone?
Yes.
Abiogenesis means non-living synthesis. You understand? Theory of abiogenesis gives us the answer. Where did the first living system came from? Now, before going to how did they prove, and Oprin and Haldane managed to prove this, and it was a big leap in science because we could actually for the first time see evolution right in front of our eyes in an experiment, this chemical evolution. Now, if chemical evolution can happen, and if inorganic substances like nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen as elements can come together to form organic substances, which can come together to form a living system, then it's a brilliant thing to prove. Now, tell me, if I ask you to design life, let's say, let's play creators for some time, but let's assume to play that role. So if you have to design life, how will you do it? What is a living system? Just look at a living system around you and just tell me what is special about living system, a single cell which is living. What are the properties of a living system? First property is that it should be able to maintain itself separate from the environment, right? So to make a living system, you need a membrane, right? Without a membrane, there cannot be a living system. Yes or no? Because you will never be able to distinguish between what is environment and what is the system then. So we need a membrane. It's just like making a house. You need 4 walls, right? From 4 different sides to enclose a space. So similarly, you need to enclose a space with a membrane. Now, what should be this membrane like? It should be like a proper concrete wall, not allowing anything inside out, or it should be permeable.
Permeable.
Yes, because a living system may have to interchange or may have to exchange various things from the surrounding. So it has to take nutrition from the surrounding, and it also has to dump waste in the surrounding. So you need a permeable membrane. Okay. What then? Just a permeable membrane is okay, and that's life? No, right? Yes. Then what is the next thing? What's the next logical step? Within that permeable membrane, a living system must be able to maintain the concentration of chemicals which are required, right? Different from the surroundings. Yes or no? It should be able to control the movement of substances. So, internal composition should be different, which is known as cytoplasm, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
And then what else you need? What is happening inside?
Something to release energy.
The
Yes,
growth.
what is that something? What is that something? What every cell does? What's happening inside every cell?
So
Respiration.
division,
Sorry, sir.
growth.
Again. Forget about all these things. What's happening? Growth is a product of what is happening inside the cell. A dead cell does not grow, right? So why is a living cell living? What's happening inside that internal composition,
So
which is not
metabolic,
happening? And what is metabolism? Very good. Perfect.
like
Brilliant
energy
answer.
generation.
From metabolism, we went to energy generation. Stick to metabolism. No? What is metabolism? How do we define metabolism? What is the definition of metabolism, people? See, if you keep forgetting fundamentals, the only option you might left with you is to remember, mug up these things. That is exactly what I don't want you to do. So discuss with me. What is metabolism?
So we can say like the energy generated by the cell.
Don't go to
then
energy
use-
generation. Forget about energy generation. It is just one small part of metabolism. We do not just keep generating energy in our body, we also use it. I don't know why we have this fancy with energy generation. What is metabolic activity?
So movement, we can say.
Movement of what? If the bacteria moves, it is metabolic activity.
Sorry.
So like everything to do with energy can be considered as metabolism.
Forget energy. Forget about energy for a moment. Okay. Metabolism
Energy is like
involves
fundamental to metabolism, right?
to do what? That is what I'm asking. You cannot use the word energy and say energy is metabolism. Energy is fundamental for metabolism to do what? What is metabolism? Why is metabolism using energy or producing energy? Or is it only using energy or only producing energy? It is doing both, right?
Yes, suppose.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but what is happening in the cell
Life
that is using
processing.
or producing energy?
Like chemical reactions are going on.
Exactly. This just one word, chemical reactions. That is what I was asking you from a very long time. You have to just say chemical reactions are happening, which are breaking or making the bonds and hence using or producing energy, right? So metabolic activity is nothing but chemical reactions happening inside cell, right?
Yes.
So we need chemical reactions to happen in this enclosed space, and those chemical reactions are not happening in the surrounding water or in the surrounding environment. Yes or no?
Yes.
That's why life is different. It can produce sugar by reacting something with something which the water cannot do in which it is present. Yes or no?
Yes.
You are actually creating the first living cell here. Do you understand by logic? So we need chemical reactions to happen. And there is one very important thing that is required for chemical reactions. What is it? Catalysts.
Yes.
RNA intake.
What is the catalysts of biological system?
Enzyme.
Exactly. So we need to make some enzyme or ribozyme. Remember ribozyme?
Yes.
So
Yes,
for the
sir.
earliest life to develop, this is the ingredient. enclose the space, make an internal composition which is different from the external composition, and within that internal space, do chemical reactions with the help of enzymes or ribozymes, which will be your metabolic activity. Yes? We
Yes,
are
sir.
missing on something very, very crucial. What is the one thing without which life can neither start or not sustain? The chapter 5 and 6 was based entirely on that.
So reproduction.
Chapter 5 and 6.
DNA.
Genetic material.
Yes.
Every living system needs a blueprint. Yes?
Yes.
So we
Yes, sir.
need inside the cell, there has to be a genetic material. Now it looks like a simple early life system, living system. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now let's come to permeable membrane first. What is this made up of? Just one word answer is allowed.
Lipid.
So mucilage or something. Mucilage or liptides.
What? Lipids.
Lipids.
Yeah. What is this made up of?
Nucleic acid.
Then chemical reactions, enzymes. What are they made up of?
Proteins.
Or let me write amino acids. Okay. Yes, fundamental.
Yes, sir.
And what is present in cytoplasm? Everything. Right? Yes or no? So the ingredient is biomolecules, in short, to make a life. Now, when Operin and Haldane said that chemical evolution was the reason, and theory of abiogenesis, which says that life came out of non-living substances, you can just write down theory of abiogenesis states life emerged from non-living component. Everyone was okay. Prove it then. If this is science, this is real science, it must be happening right now also. Even right now in 2022, there must be. Will there be abiogenesis happening? The question is yes, but in very limited regions, because one of the main reason for abiogenesis to happen was the early earth conditions. They said that the early earth conditions what were the conditions, early earth conditions? Let's talk about that before going into the experiment. How was earth when it was formed? First thing, we all know that it must be very hot. There is proof for it because earth is like an egg. Only the crust is solid. If you go deep inside, the mantle is semi-solid and the core is completely molten. And the proof for that is lava that comes out of volcanoes, right? Or the geology. The geological studies have proved that earth inside is molten. Yes or no?
So
Yes.
What is the other proof to say that only crust is solid and other things are molten inside? So it's like an egg. Inside it's liquid, outside the shell is crust. Now the crust is not stable, it is still drifting. You know that?
Yes.
And because of that only certain tsunamis occur when two tectonic plates which are drifting rub against each other, right?
So
So we have ample of proof to say that crust is the only solid thing, and inside if we dig all the crust, then down inside earth is like molten. Okay, so early earth where the crust was not solidified or was just solidifying in pockets, what must be the early Earth conditions? Logic again. First thing, it must be very, very hot, right?
Yes.
So
High temperature. Okay. Then
So they will be water, like covered with water, like it is covered with.
covered with water.
Sorry, there will be water
filtered
vapor
water.
if there is high temperature.
Yeah, if it is so high a temperature, you know, we are talking about temperature which is melting the like which is the reason why the mantle and the crust is still molten or semi molten. So it's not like 100 degree or 200 degree. We're talking about where everything melts. 100 degrees is like the vessel in which you boil the water, the vessel just gets heated up, it does not melt. So we're talking about thousands of degrees temperature in the early Earth conditions. So high temperature was there. Volcanic eruptions, right,
Yes.
were very common. Yes. And the atmosphere was reducing atmosphere. What do we mean by reducing atmosphere? In chemistry, what is reduction and what is oxidation? A reducing atmosphere is which does not contain anything which is oxygen based. For example, methane, CH4, and ammonia, NH3. Okay, methane, ammonia, etc.
So CO2.
CO2 has oxygen.
Yeah.
Okay. It is reducing. It did not have oxygen at that time. Oxygen came very late. That is where aerobic organisms started developing. Oxygen was there, but trapped as oxides of the rocks and things. But in the atmosphere, oxygen was not there. Water vapor was there. You're right. CO2 could also have been there, but very low. Water vapor was there, but it was very heated. Okay. So early water vapors must have been there in the reducing atmosphere. But these three things were confirmed that these three things were there in early Earth. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, Oparin and Helden thought, and very thoughtfully they said that let us recreate the conditions present on early Earth. And just by using those conditions, if we are able to show that inorganic chemicals can give rise to organic molecules, then can we say that the theory of abiogenesis actually is proven? That yes, chemical evolution is happened. Yes, you have to show it, right? Prove it. So what they did, write down. Oparin and Helden created Oparin and Helden created. Let me try to pull that figure. Similar conditions created similar conditions to early Earth conditions in laboratory. Similar conditions to early Earth conditions in laboratory setup. How can you do that? Any idea? How can we create similar conditions? Of course, you have to do it in a closed system, right?
Yes.
But what you can do? Yes, I got
There
this.
was the experiment, Miller's experiment. They did that.
Urey and Miller's experiment, right?
Yes.
You're talking about. Yeah, that is one thing. But what did they hypothesize? Tell me, you said Urey Miller's experiment. You know the word, but what it is about?
They observed like there was presence of amino acid in complex molecules.
Mhm.
Like we can
See,
say,
we are very good with these things which we need to learn, but we are very bad with understanding where did they came from. Very good. At least you know it. That's a very good step. So it will be very easy for me to connect the dots. And the role of a teacher is to connect dots of your knowledge. Your knowledge is your knowledge. Okay. Yes, Zed, tell me.
so they were like sugars, nitrogenous bases, and other things inside the flask. They were conducting the experiment. Uh,
So if there were sugar already in the flask, then you have already put an organic molecule in the flask. What is the point of conducting the experiment? You put an organic molecule and you say that, see, we have produced an organic molecule. It is just fraud. It's cheating. Don't you think so?
yes.
If you put sugar in the flask, then you have already put organic molecule in the flask. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? It could not have been sugar. What it could have been? Yes, Atif. Any idea?
Hydrogen.
Elements,
Yeah.
inorganic compounds, right? So write down. There was a scientist called Miller. Miller, an American scientist. Miller, an American scientist, based on Operin and Haldane's theory. Based on Operin and Haldane's theory. Created early Earth-like conditions in laboratories. In laboratory. Early Earth-like conditions in laboratory. And let me pull out this one picture. Can you see this picture, everyone?
Yes.
This is just a schematic diagram of what they did. So to create early Earth-like conditions, what do you need? You need things which were present on early Earth. Yes or no?
So
What was present on early Earth? First, it was reducing environment. So CH4, NH3, water, and hydrogen, right? So these things, methane, ammonia. Ammonia is a gas. You know? Methane is also a gas. It's a greenhouse gas, if you know that. H2O is water, and H2 is hydrogen. All these were present in reducing environment. Yes?
Yes.
Early reducing environment. None of these is capable of giving rise to a life or a living system. Can it?
No. Sir.
Can methane give rise to a living system?
No. Sir.
Ammonia?
no.
Water?
Uh,
Plain water? No. Hydrogen?
yes.
No. So early reducing. They mimicked early, so they put all these gases, you know, and this water in both in vapor form and in little liquid form, because when Earth started cooling down, some vapors cooled down to liquid. So when you know that when water vapors come below the temperature of 100 degrees Celsius, they become liquid. Yes.
Yes.
You can even have hotter liquids at higher pressures. You know that? If you increase the atmospheric pressure, you can heat a liquid even beyond 100 degrees. It's a simple rule of physics. Yes or no?
Yes.
So they kept all these things in mind. And where so chemical reactions were happening? To do chemical evolution, chemical reactions, when you put all these things in a flask, they should react, but they were not reacting. Methane was methane, ammonia was ammonia, nothing was happening, because for chemical reactions to happen, what do you need? Now you are not using the term which you were using every time.
Energy.
Energy. And what do you think on early Earth, where energy came from? Where did energy came from on early Earth? Tell me.
So due to banging of two
Due to?
we can say spark.
So on early Earth, there were sparks happening. So you went back in time and placed electrodes on early Earth to make sparks?
No, sir.
Then?
There was an electric discharge, we can say.
How? Why? What electric discharge? Where is this electric discharge happening from on early Earth? Just think, no. It was an unstable, reducing environment, right?
Yes.
Volcanic eruptions were just happening every time, everywhere, right? There's no life. Imagine an Earth which is semi-molten, trying to cool down. Lava, volcanic eruptions are happening every time. So a lot of heat is around. Yes or no?
Yes.
And that heat, or that along with the energy of the sun, that's also a radiation, a heat. So that can be mimicked by spark discharges, right? Just put some spark. Yes or no? Because spark does not have any organic component to it.
Yes.
To put fire, you need a fuel. So you need to burn petroleum or something. So you cannot use fire. But you can use electricity. It's a neutral source of energy, right? It does not have any organic compound associated with it. Yes or no? It is a simple thing which must also be happening on early Earth, because there are many anions and cations, and they all must be bouncing in each other, creating these spark-like or thunderbolt-like things, or volcanic eruptions happening. Right now, you cannot put some lava and put it in this, because lava will just melt all this apparatus. But we can mimic it on a lower scale through sparks. Yes or no?
Yes.
And then it will just keep heating this liquid. So there are gases along with some water, and then they put water in and water out to just condense. Because over time Earth cooled down. Yes or no? So this process from here to here, cooling down, on Earth, it happened in millions of years scale. But they are just fast forwarding it by running a water through it. If you run water, so whatever heating was happening here due to spark energy through electrodes and these gases, now you have energy. So the gases will collide with each other and will do chemical reactions. Yes or no?
Yes.
And when they will cool down over time, the water vapor, this part, will start condensing and become water droplets.
Yeah.
Which will be deposited at the base here. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, to begin with, you only provided methane. Anyone has a question? Rifat, Atif?
No.
Okay. So it is a closed system. Nothing can come out of anywhere, because this system was connected to a vacuum pump. Can you see there is no opening anywhere? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you're just cooling down, and then there's a boiling water. So you are boiling things here again with heated rod, which when the water boils, again everything goes as vapors, then come in this chamber, spark happens as gases, these gases react with each other, again they cool down, condense as liquid, and then that liquid is again boiled with this heated rod again. So this whole cycle of cooling, reacting, cooling, heating, reacting is continuing, right? This is exactly what was happening on early Earth, right?
Yes.
But no contamination from outside, nothing is coming from outside. The only ingredient is methane, ammonium, ammonia, water, and hydrogen. So you have carbon, you have hydrogen, you have nitrogen, and you have oxygen as elements. Now let's see what happened over time. Over time, they realized that this liquid, which should only have contained these things, just by allowing it to react, in their very limited experiment, they found the water contained organic compounds like amino acids. Did we put amino acids?
So,
Did we introduce amino acids anywhere in the system?
No, sir.
Then how did amino acids were formed? Amazing, no? Because amino acids require carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen only. Remember? CHON, known as CHON. This is the basis of all organic compounds. CHON should be there. CHON. Right? And on early Earth, CHON was present, but no, in some or the other form. And from nothing, from inorganic compounds, you found organic compound. You know, amino acid is the building block of proteins. Yes or no? Yes.
Yes,
Do you
yes.
understand? Yeah. So if in an experiment which you are doing on a lower scale in a lab, in a closed system, on a scale of just months, so on a scale of months, if you can manage to get amino acids from inorganic substances, imagine the same kind of thing happening on Earth for millions of years. So if amino acids can be formed, that then nucleic acid can also be formed, because phosphorus is also present in rocks, right? Phosphorus is present in rocks, it's an inorganic compound. So nucleic acids, amino acids, lipids can also form, right, from inorganic substances.
yes.
Yeah. And this is a proof, this is the evidence, which is a limited evidence, but it is a evidence that says that chemical evolution happened. So chemical evolution due to Miller's experiment was accepted. Okay.
Yes.
Do you understand what Miller achieved? Miller achieved a big feat. He actually figured out that chemical evolution is true. If it can happen in my flask, then if Earth is the laboratory, imagine early Earth, it is happening all over the Earth, right?
Yes.
I can manage to get amino acids, and all other organic molecules can also arise from inorganic molecules, given millions of years, and this cycle happening infinite number of times. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. If you continue the same experiment, which has also been, people have done it. If you continue the same experiment for like 20 years or 50 or 100 years, you will find more and more complex amino acids and more complex organic compounds. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you just let this experiment continue for millions of years, you will find almost all complex organic molecules required for building a cell. But still, this experiment could not make a cell. We could not find cells in this liquid water, living cells, but we could find organic compounds. Big feat. So write down about Miller's experiment. Oh, is the time is over? What? Time just flew today. Okay, just write down a few things. Miller observed formation of amino acids. Miller observed formation of amino acids from inorganic chemical constituents, from inorganic chemical substances in his experiment. In his experiments. And next line, in other similar experiments done by other scientists, they observed the formation of sugars. They have observed the formation of sugars, nitrogenous bases. This is going crazy, right? Even fats and lipids. And in some cases, people have also figured out where they just tweaked, they increased the temperature of this spark, they increased the concentration of ammonia or something like that, and they saw even pigments. Now, pigment is something biological, right?
Yes.
Melanin is one pigment which is present in our cells. So if you can find all these things in just a year or 2 year or 3 year experiment in a flask, which is, you know, a very, very humble representation of early Earth, then you can imagine what could have happened in early Earth as an experimental lab. Yes or no? And all these things are organic: sugars, nitrogenous bases, from which our DNA is made up of, fats and lipids from which the plasma membrane is made up of, and pigments which give rise to, which are basically proteins which played important functions in the cell. So all these, so we could reach making the ingredients of a cell, right? So what is the next logical step? Trying to figure out how this all, you know, came together to make the first self-replicating cell. Yes or no? That we will do in the next class. You understand, Atif? So are you understanding like the gist of evolution from the beginning now? Is it interesting?
Yes, sir. This is probably the most interesting biology chapter.
Yes, sounds like science now, right? Not like stories or fantasies, you know, that this came out of this, or humans made up, so came from apes or something like that. We will reach there eventually. But I think it's very interesting, right, to begin with. Okay, so we'll continue in the next class. People, please read a little on yourself.